who could scarcely earn bread for his large family. One night he was roused from his sleep by a knocking at his door. He opened it and saw before him a tall, thin, cadaverous-looking person. "Harkee, honest friend," said the stranger, "I have observed that you are one to be trusted. Will you undertake a job this very night?" "With all my heart, senor, on condition that I am paid accordingly." "That you shall be, but you must suffer yourself to be blindfolded." To this the mason made no objection. So, being blindfolded, he was led by the stranger through various rough lanes and winding passages until they stopped before the portal of a house. The stranger then applied a key, turned a creaking lock, and opened what sounded like a ponderous door. They entered, the door was closed and bolted, and the mason was conducted through an echoing corridor and a spacious hall to an interior part of the building. Here the bandage was removed from his eyes, and he found himself in a court dimly lighted by a single lamp. In the center was the dry basin of an old Moorish fountain, under which the stranger requested him to form a small vault, bricks and mortar being at hand for the purpose. He worked all night, but without finishing the job. Just before daybreak, the stranger put a piece of gold into his hand, and, having again blindfolded him, conducted him back to his dwelling. "Are you willing," said he, "to return and complete your work?" "Gladly, senor, provided I am so well paid." "Well then, tomorrow at midnight I will call again." He did so, and the vault was completed. "Now," said the stranger, "you must help me to bring forth the bodies that are to be buried in this vault." The poor mason's hair rose on his head at these words. However, he followed the stranger with trembling steps into a retired chamber of the mansion, expecting to see some ghastly spectacle of death, but was relieved on seeing 3 or 4 portly jars standing in one corner. They were evidently full of money, and it was with great labor that he and the stranger carried them to their tomb. The vault was then closed, the pavement replaced, and all traces of the work were erased. The mason was again blindfolded and led forth by a route different from that by which he had come. After they had wandered for a long time through a confusing maze of lanes and alleys, they halted. The stranger then put 2 pieces of gold into his hand. "Wait here," said he, "until you hear the cathedral bell toll for the morning prayer. If you dare to uncover your eyes before that time, evil will come upon you." So saying, he departed. The mason waited faithfully. The moment the cathedral bell rang, he uncovered his eyes and made his way back home. He revelled with his family for a whole fortnight on the profits of his 2 nights' work, after which he was as poor as ever. He continued to work a little from year to year. As he was seated one evening at the door of his hovel, he was approached by a rich old curmudgeon who was noted for owning many houses and being a griping landlord. The man eyed him for a moment from beneath a pair of thick, anxious eyebrows. "I am told, friend, that you are very poor." "There is no denying the fact, senor. It speaks for itself." "I believe, then, that you will be glad of a job and will work cheap." "As cheap, my master, as any mason in Granada." "That's what I want. I have an old house fallen into decay, which costs me more money than it is worth to keep it in repair, for nobody will live in it. So I must come up with a way to patch it up and keep it together at as small an expense as possible." The mason was accordingly conducted to a large deserted house that seemed going to ruin. Passing through several empty halls and chambers, he entered an inner court, where his eye was caught by an old Moorish fountain. He paused for a moment, for a dreaming recollection of the place came over him. "Pray," said he, "who occupied this house formerly?" "A pest upon him!" cried the landlord. "It was an old miser who cared for nobody but himself. He was said to be immensely rich. He had no relations. He died suddenly, but nothing could be found except a few gold coins in a leather purse. The worst luck has fallen on me, for since his death people pretend to hear the clinking of gold all night in the chamber where the old miser slept, as if he were counting over his money, and sometimes a groaning and moaning about the court. Whether true or false, these stories have brought a bad name on my house, and not a tenant will remain in it." "Enough," said the mason with determination. "Let me live in your house rent-free until some better tenant present, and I will engage to put it in repair." The offer of the honest mason was gladly accepted. He moved with his family into the house and fulfilled all his engagements. Little by little he restored it to its former state. The clinking of gold was no more heard at night, but began to be heard by day in the pocket of the living mason. In other words, he increased rapidly in wealth, to the admiration of all his neighbors, and became one of the richest men in Granada. He never revealed the secret of the vault until on his deathbed to his son and heir.